We're going to call the special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District to order. Today's date is Monday, October 21st, and it's 4 p.m. Roll call shows that all 5 board members are here, and we're in open session. And ask everybody before we get started, please silence your cell phones. So please stand and join me in the salute to the flag, the greatest country in the world. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our invocation. Chaplain Lewis.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Please bow, let's pray together. Father in heaven, it is good to always come to you with who we are. We bring things sometimes that we don't see clearly ourselves, but we know that you have perfect vision of what we're doing and what we're going to do. We do pray for your guidance and direction. Bless this board, Lord, that there will be harmony that can be achieved with your love and your strength, and each one working with one another, looking for the best. It's easy to see things that when they go wrong, but sometimes we have to look a little harder, be a little patient, and then try more frequently to do what is right. Give us your grace and help us to always be gracious to others. May the decision made by this board be a positive affection on this department, on the city, and on the citizens. Help us to do your will as often as we can, and we mess up. Help us to come to you and ask for forgiveness and get renewed again in our spiritual growth. This is our prayer. Please incline your ear to us and grant us your peace. In the matchless name of Jesus Christ, our Lord, we pray. And everybody said, Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Now's the time for public communications. This is the time and place for the general public to address the board of directors about subjects that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. The public may address items on the agenda at the time addressed by the board. Due to board policy and Brown Act requirements, action may not be taken on any issue not on the agenda. When you address the board, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, which is optional, prior to making your remarks. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And I have one request to speak. Brad Goldman.
Two things. I asked for the board to extend my time so that my comments may go long, which is allowed through board policy.
Yes, for an extension.
I asked for an extension on time.
Extension on time?
Yes.
How much time?
Maybe about 10 minutes.
Well, let me clarify something. If you want to speak on board policy, you can speak at both public committees.
No, this is pursuant to board policy, not on board policy. That I may have an extension as pursuant to board policy.
Okay.
It's not on the board policy. It's not on the agenda item 2. It's on pursuant to board policy. I'm allowed to request as long as you give it to everyone else. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just asking for an extension.
And how long of an extension?
Instead of 5, it may go to 10, if I have to go through the whole packet.
The rest of the board's okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm not. 5 minutes is enough.
I don't think it's required, but can we check with legal?
Not required for, you have approval.
Okay, thank you. Once again, real quick, before I begin, I asked Director Williams now, as I stated in the chat, that as I stated at the last board meeting, I ask you to please resign. Since according to your comments, you said, I didn't mean to intimidate you, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to resign because I didn't do anything that would cause me to resign or be removed or anything such as that. So before, unless you'd like to, no? Okay. So I introduced some documents to you guys that was sent to you. I'd like, it was all emailed to you guys. Yes, is that correct? Okay. Pretty much what it is I'd like this item to be agendized through board policy. 2020-5, except for emergency or dire situations, the agenda for special items need to be posted 24 hours before in advance of requirement. And then non-agenda items, when the majority decides there's an emergency situations, when two-thirds of the amenders present, determined there's a need for immediate action, and the need to take action came to the attention of the local agency subsequent to being posted. And then this exception requires a degree of urgency and proof that it cannot be considered under this provision. So, what I'd like to let you guys know is, according to an article dated December 15th, 2018, Director Williams said, "We've not lived in my home since May 1st, 2015, when there was a car crash in Chino Hills. His wife suffered serious injuries," he said. "At that time, we couldn't live in that house because the bathrooms downstairs didn't have any bathing facilities," Mr. Williams said. "We moved into our son's house in Chino Hills. He just purchased. Our son was nice enough to let us live in this house, and he went and moved into his condo." And that's pursuant to, the paperwork I gave you. Also, according to a lawsuit that he filed against the city of Chino Hills that states the reason, some of the reasons why he can live in his homes. Then a domicile is computed on day of election in which someone lives. This is California Election Code. Article 2, determinations of residence and domicile. Section 2020 determines domicile. And then going underneath that to, one moment. It pretty much states though that it's not, where you own homes, it's where you've been, residing since that time. But that's not really the important thing. The important thing is this, that you guys all filed when you filed for elections, and you guys have that, and I wanna say it's Election Code, Division 10, Part 4, 10.5.11. Let me say that one more time, just for the record. 10.5.11. And this is just the official document that you fill out when you put I, your name, do hereby declare myself as a candidate for the election to the office of Fire Board of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District. I'm a registered voter. If you elected, I qualify and accept the office of Chino Valley and serve to the best of my ability. I request my name be placed on the official ballot district for election to be held on whichever date, and that might appear on the ballot as follows. And then you put your current residence. Then it says desire following occupation, and then it goes on to say, I'm aware that any person who files or submits for filing a declaration of candidacy knowing that any part of it has been made falsely is punishable by a fine or imprisonment or both, as set forth in section 10.203 of the Election Code. I declare under perjury under the law of the state of California that the foregoing is true and correct, and in your signature. I do not have a copy of this because this is only available at the elector's office, but I did go and review it, and I do have a copy of the ballot designations that have the same date and show that Director Mr. Williams, since he's never been ballot for this office, address is 4636 Whitney Court in Chino. His current address is on Dogwood in Chino Hills. So, Election Code, Chapter 3, Nomination of Candidates, 18.203. Any person who files or submits for filing a nomination paper or declaration of candidacy knowing that any part of it has been made falsely is punishable by a period, or by a fine not exceeding $1,000, or by imprisonment pursuant to Section H of Section 1070 of the Penal Code for 16 months or 2 or 3 years, or both that fine and imprisonment. And then, after that, this article only applies to contentions on the ground that the defiant is ineligible to dispute office. This is Election Code, Section 16440. And then 16440 states the article applies only to contests on the grounds that the defiant is not eligible to the office in dispute. And then the next page that I sent you guys is 106100. Any elector of the county, city, or any political subdivision either may contest an election held within for any of the following reasons. The precinct board or member therefore was guilty of malcontent. That's the only thing I'm going to say on that. If you guys need it, it's further there. And then pursuant to board section 2040.3. In the event the board becomes aware of violation of state, federal, or local law, the board may, in addition to any other remedies, refer such matters to the appropriate law enforcement, state or local authorities for civil or criminal prosecution. In addition, in the event that these board policies are violated, whether maliciously, willfully, intentionally, or neglectfully, the board may, in addition to other remedies, censor the violating remedy, refer the member to the appropriate authorities or civil or judicial criminalization, seek judicial relief, or any combination of such. And then here's a letter from the district attorney opening up a public integrity investigation into Director Williams for not living and committing perjury on this election form. So once again, Director Williams, I ask you to resign now so you do not have to face a criminal prosecution, which any other actions will bring forward to you.
No.
Mr. Williams, you're not able to respond. All you're able to do is sit there and listen. Once again, another violation of the Brown Act. I ask that the board recess for this moment to consider these actions into closed sessions if that's required, and that's all I have to say on this matter. Thank you.
Refer this to legal.
Yeah, so sounds like Mr. Goldman was asking the board to add an agenda item perhaps to this meeting. As the board is aware, the Brown Act generally does not allow items to be added to the agenda unless there's an urgency. If something came to the attention of the agency after the agenda was posted and there's an immediate need to take action. I think in this situation, it would be hard for the board to make those findings. If the board is inclined to add this to an agenda, the board certainly can add it to a future agenda. I don't know if there's a real immediacy, and in taking into consideration as to whether you want to add it to a future agenda item, the board might wish to consider the fact that Mr. Goldman has already referred the matter to the district attorney, which is kind of what he's asked, sounds like what he's asking the board ultimately to do. So I'm certainly available to answer any questions, but you probably don't want to try and add this to tonight's agenda.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on. Old business none. New business. Resolution number 2019-18 of the Board of Directors of the Chino Valley Independent Fire District adds to the fiscal year 2019-20 amended budget as budget amendment number 2, the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150 Super Crew and associated accessory equipment to replace Unit 1603. The purpose is for the Board of Directors to review and approve Resolution 2019-18. And the resolution adds the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150 Super Crew and accessory equipment for fiscal year 2019-20. Amended budget as budget amendment number 2. Report by Chief Tim Shackelford.
President DeMonico, members of the board, good evening. I'm going to do a brief introduction and then transition the report to Deputy Chief Atkinson. On Friday, October 11, 2018, the duty battalion chief was involved in a traffic collision in which the battalion chief vehicle sustained major damage. An adjusters inspected the vehicle has determined that the vehicle is considered a total loss. The collision has left us in a position where we don't have much depth in our command vehicle fleet. Under normal circumstances, staff would first bring this request through the Finance Committee and then to the full Board of Directors for final approval. As we are attempting to expedite this purchase, we've brought it to the full Board of Directors for approval this evening. If approved tonight, a suitable vehicle has been located and we can quickly move forward with the purchase and outfitting of that vehicle. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Atkinson for more details.
Good evening, President DeMonico, members of the board. The purpose is for the Board of Directors to review and approve the resolution that's been presented. Staff is requesting the authority in the amount of $70,000 to purchase a 2019 Ford F-150 and associated additional accessory equipment to replace the deputy chief vehicle. This is being requested so staff can reassign the current deputy chief vehicle to the backup BC unit. The current battalion chief truck was totaled in a collision, and that unit was scheduled to be put into reserve status once we received the budgeted 2020 Ford F-250 truck that was approved a couple months ago, and it's currently on order. The purchase of the frontline fleet is driven by our reserve fleet. The current backup BC unit is a 2009 Chevy truck with 126,233 miles. Our current replacement policy is generally 12 years or 100,000 miles. 120,000 miles, as well as we determine the shape of the vehicle. To maintain consistency with the deputy chiefs, a Ford F-150 Super Crew is the vehicle choice that we're requesting. Villa Ford, located in the city of Orange, was able to find a 2019 F-150 that met our needs, and they've also applied the municipal fleet discount. The proposed dealership has a government price concession, the GPC code, on file with the district, which basically provides negotiating free pricing, and it meets or exceeds the savings offered by the 2019 state contract bid. This also fulfills all requirements of the district's purchasing policy. So the breakdown is $45,093.21 for the vehicle. That's for the F-150 truck. $24,906.79 for the purchase of the lights, sirens, and emergency radio equipment, shell, and installation costs. Staff has filed a claim with our insurer. We'll be receiving the cost of all the associated costs to transfer all equipment from the damaged BC unit over to the current F-150 that's currently assigned to the DC, and we'll also be receiving the value of the 2013 Ford F-150 truck. We have not received that estimate as of this time. So it is recommended that the Board of Directors review and approve Resolution Number 2019-18, authorizing the amount not to exceed $70,000 for the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150 Super Crew and accessory equipment to the fiscal year 2019-20 amended budget as a budget amendment number 2. And I can certainly answer any questions that you may have tonight.
Okay, at this time, I'll open it up for any public comment. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this item? Seeing none,
Public, I'm sorry, no.
public. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for board comment. Would anybody from the board like to comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Hold on. Mr. Heidi, is this, do we have the money for this?
We do, and it's before you this evening because this was not contemplated in the original budget, but we do have funds available and unassigned fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
I have a question. Yes, please. So the lights and sirens and things, we're transferring from the existing unit, or?
So what we're doing is the current DC vehicle is set up in a lower level than what we would have for the floor. So it doesn't have a light bar. The lights are more concealed, and the fact that we don't drive it as much, code 3. So essentially, we're going to take the DC vehicle and the battalion chief vehicle and put them together, right, side by side. And our vendor is going to work to transfer all the equipment over to the DC vehicle and make that the backup BC unit.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. What was the condition of the vehicle that got wrecked?
It's been totaled by the insurer.
And how many miles was on it?
It had 55,120 miles.
And what year was it?
It was a 2013 Ford F-150.
Any idea when the investigation is gonna be completed? And we'll get a report on that accident.
That's irrelevant to this.
So are you referring to the value of the vehicle?
No,
or-
the accident itself, what I understand is that it's under investigation.
Okay, I'll turn that over to.
That's typically, depending on what happens with this, we will have a police component in terms of the vehicle accident, and then we'll have an internal investigation as well. As that gets into personnel issues, that's not shared with the board.
Oh, the accident's not shared?
The accident can be shared, that's been very publicized, that was in the paper. I can answer questions on that. We will have a police report completed with that, and then an internal investigation if necessary, based on the findings.
But was it my understanding that there'd be an investigation? It was under investigation, or has he?
At the time, are you referring to the email that I sent out the evening of the incident?
Probably it.
At that time, yes, the incident was under investigation from law enforcement.
Has it been completed?
Yes.
Have they determined what the situation was?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Now, you're not allowed to tell about that, or?
At this point, I would prefer not to, as there may be a need for further personnel investigation, and once we have all the details.
Okay, is that something that's because of the nature of the situation, is it, out there for public?
President
To
DeMonico, I think we're straying from the agenda item.
I think we are too, and I'm gonna ask to get back to the agenda item, which is the purchase of the vehicle.
Okay.
Harvey, do you have anything else?
No.
A motion to approve.
I second it.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is fire district policy and procedures for board of directors. Purpose is for the board of directors to review the fire district policy and procedures for the board of directors. Referred by clerk of the board, Amy.
President DeMonico, members of the board, the purpose of this report is to provide an opportunity for the board directors to review the attached policy and procedures for the board directors with red-lined recommended changes. At the regular board meeting held in February, the board of directors discussed the process for reviewing the board policy and procedures, and Vice President Luth and Director Sarah Ramos-Evinger were appointed by President DeMonico to serve on an ad hoc committee to comply board input, meet with legal counsel to further review the current policies, and present the recommendations back to the full board at a full workshop. All board members had an opportunity to submit their comments, and they're incorporated in the red line document. It is recommended that the board of directors review the board policies for board of directors and provide direction to staff.
Before I get started with the board, I'd like to ask, is there any public comment on the board policies? Anyone, request to speak?
So after reviewing this document, I've noticed that there's a couple things, and I'd recommend that the board, itemize the items. I understand, I see that you have in, section, series 200 on your board meetings, but I, ask that you guys separate that, because that is a number of things of board member issues. And so, so that you guys can review, I'm sorry, one moment. My apologies. That you take sections 200, or I'm sorry, 100, 120, 170, 210, Brown Act, and a couple others, and combine them into one section, kind of decorum of, kind of board policies and procedures, so that it's a much clearer and concise thing. Because some of these are committees and stuff, and that's more kind of just board member like requirements and so forth. It'd be a much clearer document that way for the public to for the board and for the public to use and read. And doing so, because, swearing in agenda items, administrative reviews and decisions and stuff like that, either repeating it or just having it kind of sectioned off into two would make it a much clearer, concise document. And then also adding in some information about the Brown Act requirements vis-a-vis, public's right to speech, and then also sections, some California legal sections, 203, and then, removal of, if there's disruptions and stuff like that, to what, the, board members are treated any other way the public would be in terms of disrupting, penal code, I think it's 410 or 420. So anytime there's a disruption in the public meeting, those would be treated the same ways for board members as they'd be treated for the general public. So, yeah, are we doing this as a workshop? Because I understand under the agenda, this is agendized as a workshop, not necessarily as a public comment, so I didn't know if you guys had any questions on that at all.
No, it's a workshop for the board, but we do have public comment before.
Okay. Oh, well, no, the way it was, I didn't know if it was a workshop, like a public workshop with everyone, or if it was just a workshop for the board, was my question. It's just workshop, okay. And so,
But we accept public comment.
okay, and so in that case, I'd recommend possibly sending it back, one more time to the committee, you know, so that that stuff could be kind of, ironed out and have, you know, brought before them. Brought before, you know, the ad hoc, you know, board policy committee before it's voted on by you guys and have legal go over it.
But what I'd like to suggest is this whole document goes through legal, and if you would submit all your concerns
Okay.
to,
That's fine.
submit them to legal for.
Well, I'd have to submit through the chief and he would.
Through
yeah.
the, absolutely through the chief, because he's the.
Yeah, just from my understanding, well, if that's the case, because my understanding is you guys would vote to approve these as proposed the way it is, unless you guys were gonna make changes.
We're
And
just
then-
reviewing today.
No, this would have to come back to another board meeting.
Okay.
Because if there's any
Okay.
changes, we would not, with the final approval would come at another board meeting.
Okay.
It's a workshop, and would not be a vote tonight.
Perfect.
So anything,
Thank you for your time.
anything, yeah, we'll refer your recommendations to legal, as well as any questions or recommendations that any of the board members have in addition to what's here, or any changes to what's here.
Thank you, President Monica, board, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other requests to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring this back, so, wonder what's the most appropriate way to do this, and I'm thinking because we had an ad hoc, Vice President Lynn and Director Evans, that we'll let you go through it, and we can go through page by page for the changes, and any recommendations from the board and staff for.
Call out
Sure.
the page, I mean, you could call out the page number and ask us if we have any questions, or if you want anything.
Sure, Vice President Lees will be happy to take on that.
Okay.
You guys put a lot of work into this, and
All right. Well, then let's just start marching through it. And obviously, the title page may change depending on where we go, so we'll start. We had some minor changes in section 1010, page 2 of 61, yes. So, just some minor language change there. I don't know if there's any concerns there. I'm just gonna keep going until I hear someone say.
Go until you hear somebody say.
Hold on. And then 1010, some clarification on a couple of points have been added there. And page 4, 1020.
Excuse me, are we allowed to talk anytime
Yeah.
here
Yes.
on this? You know, I don't wanna get too far off, but everybody knows why they added copy machines and office equipment. And, who makes the determination on whether a copy is a personal issue or related to the fire district? Who makes that determination?
Who are you asking that to? Danny?
Board in general,
I would think that
any person on the board.
I would say everybody's responsible for that,
And I would suggest we all have a responsibility to understand that, and then ultimately, if it gets brought to somebody on staff, then obviously they're gonna have to make an assessment and make a determination.
I just, because of what we've been through here and all the turmoil that it's caused, I just felt that that's something that we wanna be careful of and address somehow. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, because I don't wanna get into a long discussion or anything about it, but you guys know what I'm talking about, and the determination that came about was from one person and so on. And so let's move on, but I think that's an important point as far as what's personal and what's department related.
I agree it's important, and I think, I agree that it needed to be added on there.
And I also believe that this is for all board members and all future board members. So the policy doesn't affect just you, it affects every one of us, and it affects any future board members. So I believe we should be addressed.
Can I say something really quick, guys? It's kind of difficult to hear us in the recordings when we don't get close to our microphones, so when we speak, if we could either lean in or bring it a little closer.
Or
I
turn it on.
had people, or turn it on, I actually have had people tell me that they've had a difficult time, so if we can please, when we have, our comments, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Okay, so just to clarify, so is there some additional language that is being suggested here, that, is there a lack of clarity on that, or some additional language that's being proposed?
At this time, I don't feel that it's, appropriate. Maybe we could do it as simple as saying that if there's some question on it, bring it before the board and the board will vote on it. And if the board votes no, it's over. I mean, it's just copies. And if the board votes yes, then we'll move on with it and make copies. I mean, it's simple as that.
Well, it's not just copies, though, it's,
Well, use of machines and so on.
right, it's use of the facilities, the phones and whatnot, yes.
So if I'm hearing properly, it sounds like he wants us to add some language in there that if staff says that this is an appropriate situation, then it goes before the board for review. Is that what I'm hearing properly, or that?
I'd say that's correct, Sarah. It's a situation where if somebody questions it, it can be brought before the board and the board can say yea or nay.
I don't
That's
think the
legal,
board should be
yeah.
involved in approving making copies. I think that that's something that's done at the staff level. I think it's written well, and I think we move on.
Well, I can't agree with that because of the fact of everything that's gone on already. I mean, if we'd have brought the situation that occurred before the board, it would be long over.
There's certainly nothing legally preventing the board from establishing that type of a procedure. It's then just a policy question in terms of whether you want to put something like that in your policies.
I tend to think maybe that would be something good to add, right now. Take that burden, if it becomes a problem, take that burden away from the staff person, whoever it is, and bring it here and let us make that determination if there is a conflict between a board member and a staff member. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. But
So we could just add a sentence after that first paragraph that says if there's,
if there's a
I would rather have
if there's a
legal.
dispute between the two, then it goes before the full board to determine.
I'm concerned we're getting into micromanaging.
I think dispute is kind of
Disrupting the authority of the fire
a
chief.
harsh word. If they're just a
Okay, that's a good consideration.
difference,
Yeah.
then just bring it before the board and let it go. I mean, how much trouble could we have avoided on this situation had the issue been brought before the board? I mean, if you guys had voted, oh yeah, I think it's a personal issue. In fact, I thought it was already over myself when it began, but then I got a nasty letter similar to what is being presented here tonight.
The board,
President-
the board might want to consider, rather than adding these to your agenda and filling up your agenda, maybe having it go first to the president, whoever that president is at the time, and then if there's still a difference of opinion, then bring it to the board. That way not that I think these are gonna be
And-
coming in a lot, but.
President,
I don't wanna get into a position where we're usurping the duties and the rights and the responsibilities of the fire chief.
Well, also, but we're talking about board policy here, and we have wording in future pages here that any dispute goes before the board president anyways, don't we?
Related to agenda,
Yeah, not general disputes, no.
right.
Yeah, I don't think something like that needs to go before one person. I think the five of us can make a decision. It sounds like a big deal for a little issue, but in this, what's happened here, since I got on the board, we had a big issue for a little incident, and we don't need any more of that. It'd be a lot better just to bring it before the board, yea or nay, it's over, boom.
President DeMonica, I don't think everyone heard what you had stated earlier, the reason why you were objecting to that. I don't think everyone heard why you were objecting to the additional language and it just,
I
you
don't,
wanna lean closer and let everyone.
sure, I said I don't wanna get into micromanaging. I don't think the board should be micromanaging. We've got a fire chief, I don't wanna usurp his duties and his responsibilities. And I believe that this would fall more in line with management versus what the board does. It's just a personal feeling I have that I don't think, we're policy, you know, that's what we do. We make policy. We're not the technical, we're not the worker bees.
But
And
the
that's where
problem,
my concerns lie. I don't wanna get into, everything coming to the board that really shouldn't be coming to the board.
but the problem is that it was micromanagement that caused the problems to begin with. And that's the whole thing. That's the gist of everything
I don't
that's
see
gone
it as
on.
micromanagement,
with
I
this
see it
department.
as somebody who's looking out for our best interest as board members and ensuring that we are not violating any law or, any policy that we have in place. So I see it a little differently than you as micromanaging. I think someone who's sitting out there watching out for our best interest at all times.
But when we're
And
talking
if it
two
was-
copies and everything that's
That's
gone
right,
on
two
for two
copies.
copies,
Go to-
that's
Go to
micromanaging.
Staples.
And there's no two ways about it. And
For
that's
two
what
copies,
caused the
I
whole
would do
problem.
that from home or go to Staples. I wouldn't even waste my time coming to district, to be quite honest with you, so.
Yeah, let's
So
move on.
is there
I didn't, I was
support for
afraid
that
that
or
this
no?
would happen if I brought this up, but I felt it needed to be brought up, and
Okay.
I think we should move on.
All right,
Okay,
and if
move
you're,
on.
if you're
Page
withdrawing
4.
that,
There was no change being requested then?
right. Okay, page 4, section 1020. There, we moved some things to other sections that, in this case to 1060, which specifically relates to the president's role. And then we added some language on page 5, just to, again, try to bring some clarity to the issues that are addressed there.
Where are we at now?
On page 5.
Page 5.
And I do have some comments on that one.
Okay.
And those comments relate back to the actions that this board took towards Mr. Williams with the censures. And how does those censures work into any of the wording on these 3 items right here? Because his access has been restricted. And I don't know how, and this is not just because of Mr. Williams, but this goes to any future board member or any of our board members. If any of us ever were censured, how does that play into the access to the buildings and those types of things?
I think we attempted to address that later, and we'll have to get to that section, but can we remember this, and if we
We
don't
can.
address it,
We can, I
come
just,
back?
you know,
I believe we tried to address that later on.
okay.
And I have some comments on that page also on the, talking about access again. Is it ride-alongs? Is it typical that anybody that's doing a ride-along is signed off by the chief? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Well, what do you mean? As far as the board member?
No, not by the board. The person of the general public would like to do ride-alongs. That's something that is offered by our department, is that correct?
Yeah, but that's not within board policy. Board policy doesn't address that.
But I'm talking about the general public.
Right,
So
so we're
what's
talking
that-
about board policy.
So what's that have to do with this section?
The section, the question is if a person of general public comes into a fire station and says that I'd like to ride along, does that have to be okayed by the fire chief?
Once again, how does that relate to board policy?
How does that relate to what we're even talking about here?
Because it says here that if there's a ride along from one of the board members, it has to be okayed by the chief.
These are the rules that govern us as board members.
And I'm asking if a general, person of the general public goes into the fire station and says, I'd like to do a ride along, does it have to be okayed by the chief?
I don't know.
There
but-
generally is a process for that.
I don't
and
know,
they-
and that's up to the chief to determine.
Well, that's all I'm trying to figure out. Are we putting different
Yes.
things on ourselves than what the general public has? Is that what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Very possibly, we're held to higher standards.
Right, we have different privileges, we have different responsibility, and I think we have different restrictions, yes, and different requirements, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. on these changes that have occurred, are these strictly from, say, Sarah and you, Harvey, or are they?
No, all of you were asked to submit
Yeah,
anything, and whatever was submitted and what we submitted was compiled, and this is the result.
Yeah.
In addition to legal having weigh in on
Okay,
a
that's,
lot of
that's my
policy.
question, is how much did legal weigh in on this?
They review the whole document.
I reviewed it, I don't know if I made any changes to this
So,
language.
In terms of some of the language.
most of these
this is
changes
what
are
that-
from the two of you. But
No,
I
the
don't know how
entire
much
all of
board.
us have.
I didn't put anything in, but I'm not saying that that's wrong or anything, right or wrong, yeah.
All of us had input, and that's why we're able to have this workshop to review all the changes and decide if we want to keep it, delete it, move it, change it, do whatever.
My understanding was we were assigned to take the input that everybody,
Right. No,
including
I-
that we gave, and.
I'm not trying to challenge
That
you
was
guys,
it.
okay? Let's
Not
bring it
a
down.
challenge, you're asking a question.
And I'm just asking a question, and the other thing that I have a question on is if something comes up and it is in violation of, say, one of the First Amendment, Second Amendment rights, which did come up, last meeting, I think, or something, where it said in here that we couldn't say certain things, but yet the public could say certain things and stuff like that. And that's, in other words, a violation of a person's First Amendment, our First Amendment rights as board members. We can't say things, but the general public can. And yet it's, not supposed to be limiting. Are we going to try and adhere to, like, all of our rights on the amendments and so on to make sure that that type of thing does not happen? In other words, it said that board members weren't allowed to say anything, against somebody or some of the
Derogatory
other
against
people or whatever, staff and stuff like that, where.
It's in
as
board
a-
policy.
Yeah, but that's a violation
No,
of
it's
a
not.
person's First
It's
Amendment
policy.
rights.
It's policy.
It's not.
You're a
Yeah.
board member when you're
We
up
have
here
different
behind the
responsibilities,
dais.
we are held to a different standard, and we are entrusted to a standard that some things have to be kept confidential. It's not, you can't go out and just blurt whatever you want when you're sitting up here. It's a different protection. Mr. Goldman can come up and say whatever he wants. Mr. Goldman, your time to speak is already there, so this is
Well, no,
our
this is
time.
just a point of order
It's-
on First Amendment rights. Boards don't have First Amendment rights, and I'm just asking legal to explain that real quick.
First of all, only members of the legislative body can raise points of order, and so,
Would you like to interject there at all?
if the board would like me to answer the question, I will.
Go ahead.
Please.
I think what Director Krieger was saying is accurate, which is, first of all, our board policy is more specific. It says, except as part of a properly agendized performance evaluation, the board members are not supposed to criticize district employees. So there is an opportunity, there is a forum for board members, if they wish to criticize district employees, to do that, and it's a performance evaluation. It's not as part of a general agenda item, which is what the board has censured Board Member Williams for. Mr. Goldman is correct that as board members, there are times and places where board members have less protection under the First Amendment, and that's exactly what that board policy is meant to do, which is to confine those criticisms of district employees to a performance evaluation as opposed to just a regular open session agenda item, because that could expose the district to liability.
Can you, give me written documentation in regards to support of what you just said, please?
Yes.
Would that be all right with the other board members if I ask for that and?
Yep.
And, Jeff gives me that? I'd sure appreciate it, Jeff. I'm trying to get things going here and I don't want any conflict. We've had enough. Let's move on.
Okay, page 6, unless there's anything else on page 5, seeing none, page 6. Again, some cleaning up some language. We moved some stuff to 1060 and 2020, you see that actually on page 7, but it starts on the bottom of page 6. Nothing, no questions, six or seven? Page 8. Page 9.
Page 8.
Page 8.
Page, yeah,
It was
now
just,
that's page 9
Oh,
there.
8 and 9, yeah, I have
At the
it.
bottom, page 8 at the bottom.
Yeah, let's see where this one with this.
Again, part of it was just trying to clarify things that have come up that we thought, and/or someone else thought needed to be addressed. Okay, nothing, page 10,
I'm still reading.
I'm sorry?
I like the clarification on page 10, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? 10, 11?
That's it.
You good, John?
Page 10, good?
No, I'm good, go ahead,
Okay.
Page 12,
Yeah.
we moved some pieces around, but again, minor changes there.
Catch up with you.
Okay,
Is everyone on page 12 and good?
Okay, 12.
yeah. Yep,
Okay.
all good. 13. 14. Okay, we moved a little bit around again.
Is everyone good, or they,
Everybody's good with everything so far?
okay.
Page 15, any concerns?
Well, I've got something to add into here somewhere, but we'll go through here and
You'll find it.
well, I'm not sure where it fits.
Well, we can take it right now.
Did you make a
and
note?
decide.
Yeah, I made a note.
Okay, you want us to keep going, or you wanna?
No, keep going.
Okay,
Because
if it doesn't turn up, we'll figure it out.
no, it can go into,
He's-
because it can go into the sections later on too.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm on 16 now.
Yeah.
17. $18. We're good there. I'm on 19 now.
We're good with 18,
I
guys?
I did have a question on, and I don't know if this falls within 18 or not, but let's say that we have a conference in Texas, and we can get airfare for $250 to go there, and somebody chooses to drive, and the mileage would far and exceed $250. Should there be language, or am I missing it because I don't have my glasses on and I read through it earlier and I don't think I saw it, that it would be the lesser of the two, or not?
I think the section that was added in red somewhat addresses that in terms of.
I don't know if it was clear
I
enough
don't know.
where I understood it.
Yes.
Right, that,
Is obtaining the extravagant or unnecessary, oh, that was the meals.
That was,
yeah, that's a good question.
I think that's an excellent point. I think, you know, if a person wants to drive rather than fly or whatever, if they just take what was allotted, so to speak, and it costs them more, that's no big deal. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if the airfare's $250 and the mileage reimbursement could potentially in that situation be $1,000, they should only get $250 back. Because they made the choice to drive.
That's appropriate. Don't you think that's appropriate?
What part? Did they get the lesser amount?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I'd
and
like
that's a
to
good
ask
question. I
Lee.
don't know that we specifically have that clear here.
Does that kind of make sense?
And it's not denying anybody the right to drive.
Right.
But my other concern with driving would be that you're not entitled to, if it's multiple days of driving, you're not entitled to a stipend for every one of those days.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's addressed within this section.
Vice President Luth, I think address the mileage issue. I believe that is incorporated into the district's travel policy, that it does specify that
That's
you're
right, that is,
entitled
and
to
that's
the
referenced
Yes.
in this document.
It's entitled to the lesser
the
of.
lesser of, yeah.
Okay.
With regard to the issue of daily compensation, that would not obviously be covered under the travel policy.
So we may wanna come back and.
Well, I think the
clarify that.
daily compensation's addressed by when the conference starts and when it ends. And then we have the wording in there,
Yeah,
if you're there for 4 or more hours, the plus or minus on the sides there.
Right, that's only appropriate.
But I just wanna make sure that,
Yeah, if you wanna drive and make a 2-week vacation out of it instead of 4 days or 3 days, hey, knock yourself out, but you're gonna get paid with
right.
what the going rate is.
So you think that's in the travel policy, Steve? Is that
Yes,
correct?
we will double check.
Okay.
I don't think anybody cares when you leave and when you come back, as long as
Correct.
you're
Yeah.
reimbursed for the period in the middle where you're doing the official district business.
Right.
President Monaco, just to add to that, and perhaps it's been addressed with your comment, but I would suggest adding a portion for meals in a room with that it would just match whatever it would be for the conference attendees as well.
And then-
Meaning if you drove, you wouldn't
Right.
be entitled to a hotel room for 4 days on the way there and back. It would match, and same thing, meals that would correspond with that.
And that was my point, exactly, because it would, don't care how many days before, how many days after, the district's only responsible for the period of time that's authorized by the district according to our board policies or the travel policy.
I think we got it.
Sandra, you're, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
good point.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Then I'm on page 19, unless there's anything further on 18. All kind of is the same topic, obviously.
I do have a question for the ad hoc committee.
Mhm.
You guys got a lot of changes here. Did you have help from other, policies or anything, or is this all just right from you guys?
No, it's not straight from us, it's straight from all of us, whoever submitted, and again, we compiled, we suggested things, we
Yeah.
might have suggested some language even, trying to come up with the right language, certainly legal weighed in.
There's
on
also
the
legal updates that stuff might have changed legally, so
Right,
we've had to incorporate the new laws if something was in difference to the policy.
Yeah, it's great.
That's why we do it once a year.
And throughout the year, we try to keep track of things that come up and that, when it comes up, should this be considered during board policy? And we have like a little, tracking sheet, which helps us to keep track of those things.
Well, that's
They're
great.
possibly bringing forward.
yeah, that's a good point, the clerk typically does a lot of that for us, and so, yeah, there was input from there as well, from the clerk's, position.
Great.
Okay, 19, anything? 20?
Oh, I'm sorry, can I go back to 18?
No problem.
There was a typo in the very middle.
Uh,
Oh, wait, you had it scratched out, never mind.
Okay.
I couldn't see the little line, sorry.
Alright. 19 or 20?
20, yeah.
Yes.
Why is the white fire helmet highlighted?
That came up as something that the full board might wanna weigh in on. Currently, there is the white helmet. Is that something that we wanna continue with? And so that was, yeah, that's why that's.
Just for discussion.
Right, it's here for a discussion.
If
Do we
anyone
wanna
wants-
continue with that?
I think it's a great tradition.
My only concern is that on an incident, that we should not be confused with anybody else and be at the command post and those types of things. Those types of things hinder and hamper control of the incident, and we really shouldn't be there. Matter of fact, I don't believe any of us have a right to be at the incident command post. And that would be my only concern with the white helmet. And
But that's
I don't have a
addressed.
concern with a helmet,
Yeah.
but that would be my concern. And but I hope all of us on this board would not put our helmet on and our brush coat on and think we have the right to go up to the command post.
It's addressed in policy how if we,
It is, we addressed that
Yes,
before.
yes, yeah, that is addressed. But we just wanted to bring it up for discussion, is it appropriate, that we
I
continue
think,
doing
I
that?
think, well, you know,
Stripes on that.
Tradition aside, because believe me, I was a firefighter, I was in the Navy.
Yeah.
I'm 200 years of tradition uninterrupted by progress. So I understand the tradition, but the practicality of it, I think that's what's in question.
Practicality and the expense of it, yeah, is it a reasonable expense and something that we continue, that's what brought it up. We thought it'd be appropriate to bring it to the full board for discussion, not something that we should decide.
I'm gonna ask, Chief, has this been a problem at all?
Which part, the helmet, or are you referring to showing up at incidents?
Yes.
I'll stay away from the helmet, because I don't think it's been a big issue, but I understand your concerns related to potential confusion. It's been a few years, but yes, we have had board members that have showed up at scenes, and that's what instituted or brought about some of the suggested language that's been incorporated prior to this, in terms of board members making contact with me prior to, or one of the command staff. So in the past, we have had an issue with that, yes.
But we did take some action with board policies, because we've identified that we're not to do that.
That's correct. You have.
Since we've had those issues, have they gone away?
I believe so, yes. I can't recall anything off the top of my head, and I'm looking over at Deputy Chief Atkinson here. I don't think we've had anything. And I also think Pulse Point has helped, where the board's aware of what's going on. There's a little more information out on that side too. The board can see what incidents are going on, so that's.
just to be clear, it's been several years, right?
Depends on which board member you're referring to, Director Krieger, but it's been a few years at least.
Excellent.
Well, with that being said then, if we leave this alone, then from my standpoint, if this becomes a problem, I would ask you to come back and report it to the board.
I'm good with that.
All right, okay, good. Okay, now I'm on 21.
okay, so on page 21, guys, I just want to bring forward the fob access Monday through Friday between 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. My concern about that is that we don't have access to the alarm, and if staff's gone for the day and the alarm is set, we come and we're gonna set off, we're gonna create an incident. I think 7 o'clock, personally, I feel that 7 o'clock between, or if we need to come later, at least we can contact, the chief and let him know, hey, I can't get, I'm a late bird, I work late, so sometimes I'll swing by really quick and pick up documents. So can we have a discussion about this, about what we feel?
Well, can I ask a practicality question here from
Yeah.
the chief? When the alarm is set at night when you guys leave, does that include the board office?
Yes, it does.
And the door,
So,
that particular exterior door?
yes, but I think I understand where Director Ramos-Evinger is going with her question. Going forward, if the board chose to go with what's proposed, the 7 a.m. To 8 p.m., we would be able to make some changes with that. Typically, Monday through Friday, the alarm doesn't get set until closer to that time frame. There's a cleaning service that comes in, and the building's not set or not armed until after that. So typically, when you see me come back from the council meeting, I'll usually walk through and check. And oftentimes the cleaning service is still here or leaving, so it's generally 8:30 or 9 o'clock at that point, but usually there's someone from staff here, so we would be able to accommodate the 8 p.m. if the board wanted to do that. We would also have the ability to potentially isolate that portion of the building separate from the alarm system if necessary, where we could have that one activated a little bit later.
I mean, I've had times that it would have been nice to get in after 6.
Yes, and you're not alone with that, and there's, I believe the bulk of the board at one time or another has made contact with me that they've had something to pick up, hoping to get here before we close, and had an issue come up at work, some sort of other unexpected event, traffic issues. And typically, we've been able to accommodate that, and generally there's someone here, but that would provide some additional access, especially with it, if it would pertain to the board office. I wouldn't see that as much of an impact on staff at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever, I just wanted to bring that up and for discussion, make sure that we just don't bypass that, so.
Yeah, I agree. We don't wanna have the building, that part of the building not alarmed
Correct.
after, the hours there.
I guess I mean, in board policy,
Whatever we wanna
do we need to have that in board policy at specific times, but I think we do, so.
Yes, we do.
I think we do too.
So-
When you have the specific times, then you know what the times are.
Yeah, I mean, Chief, if you could, how about this, if you could come back to us before we ratify this and let us know, if it's able to have that alarm set at 8 o'clock at a later time. And, you know, I know that the individual fobs can be programmed, by a certain time as well, so.
But that doesn't do anything to the alarm is a separate component,
Yeah,
so,
well, I know, but our fobs, right now our fobs turn off at 6.
yes.
I can work with our staff and bring something back before the board approves this, but based on previous discussions, we would have the ability to provide access to that board office and be able to work around the concerns with the alarm system.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on 21?
Yeah, I've got some. They're on the badge, the retired director badge and stuff. I think it ought to say that for.
Which paragraph, I'm sorry?
Oh, it's right here where it says board members, right in the center. There's
Okay,
out board
thank you.
members.
Okay.
And it's talking about retired director badge and stuff. I think there should be a clause there where it says, directors with over 30 years of fire service in the Chino Valley Fire should get a retired director badge just because they served.
I don't
Just
see that
because
having.
you serve doesn't give privileges.
Oh, come on,
It's a different-
Okay.
be nice.
That was,
I didn't
that
know
was
he
a nice
being-
ask, I hope you were
I
asking
didn't know
that
he was
in,
being smart.
I hope you were asking that as a joke and not being serious, so, alright.
Right, page 22. And again, a lot of this is language that was moved from other sections, as is, you can see there where it came from. Not necessarily a change to the language, but moving it.
Now, has most of this red been moved, is that just?
Yeah, and you can see where it came
And the
from,
bottom.
yes,
It says at the bottom.
The bottom of each paragraph.
yes. So you can reference back to where it was and see what moved. '23, no changes there. I don't know if there's any comments. Page 24.
Yeah,
Okay,
I hate to bring this up, but we have to address this.
okay.
And there's 5 of us up here, we probably got 5 different opinions. But what constitutes a meeting? We're gonna have to put this in here.
Yeah, we have it later on, there's.
Yeah,
where did
I
we
didn't
put
see.
that? Meeting.
Maybe Sandra can remind us.
It comes up later.
I did come up later, I saw it
Yes.
as well.
I missed it coming up later. I saw attendance shall, on the same page on 24, when available, include any webinar or video
Yeah, that's,
webcast.
yeah, that's in here somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's right down here on 1080.1, but that doesn't really address,
Oh, that's right, we moved it from 1050 to there, yes, I'm sorry.
yeah, it really doesn't address it, and.
It's on there, I saw it in the
you know,
future.
Are you looking for where we identify which meetings or events?
No, just wanna know what constitutes a meeting, attendance at a meeting.
Well, attendance is here on page 24.
Right.
Right.
If you want to know what meetings are entitled to per diems, that starts back on page
I wanna
12.
know, what I believe we have to address is what constitutes attendance at a meeting to obtain a per diem.
We did do.
And I did not see that.
That's what I think, that was our attempt.
No, so
Yeah.
compensated meetings, conferences, seminars, training and education shall
We have different
include.
opinions on what constitutes a meeting, and I think we should identify that. We don't have that spelled out.
Are you asking what constitutes attendance or what constitutes a meeting?
What constitutes attendance?
Okay, so that is on page 24. You might want to consider moving that language about attendance over to
I
where the
think-
meeting reference is.
I think that should be clarified.
Where was the meeting thing, cause I thought I saw it worded differently.
Yeah, I did too. I don't know where.
No, if you look on page 12, you'll see that attendance definition used to be on page 12 in the context of meeting per diems.
Okay.
So right in the middle of page 12, you'll see there's some struck out language that used to say attendance.
I thought I saw some other wording there in one of the lines that discussed.
I don't know how many times I've read this.
You probably thought about it in your sleep.
Okay,
How about if I put some wording together and forward it,
sure.
rather than being hung up on this now?
Okay, you're gonna
That way I
submit
can
some,
clarify my thoughts and, yeah, I would like to do that.
and then that'll come back.
Then I'll come back. Okay. I'll send that to, yeah, well, I'll send it
To
to
Lee.
Sandra, and then
Send
she
it
can
to Lee.
forward it to the ad hoc.
Yeah.
Would that be appropriate, Jeff, to do it that way? Okay.
Well, it says here, John, right above it, I'm sorry, I don't wanna harp on this. The paragraph, right, or 2 paragraphs above it, says the role of the liaison is to attend meetings and represent the board, gather information, concerns, develop contacts and relationships with local agencies within the fire district, and report back to the board in effort to best serve the community.
Okay, but I still think there needs to be more clarification there. I'll submit it.
Okay.
I don't wanna get hung up on it and drag the meeting out on
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Anything else on 24?
No.
25, no real changes there. 26. Again, just clarifying the primary, secondary, and alternate assignments, just bring a little clarity to
Vice
that.
President Luth, if I could add one thing. I did have a very brief discussion with President DeMonico about a month ago, and I meant to remind him in advance of this. We're gonna be looking for the board to appoint a board member to the Confire Board of Directors. So I don't know if that would actually be considered a community liaison. It would be one board member that's a voting member of that oversight board. So I'm not sure where the appropriate location would be to include that in policy. But if that's something that the board would be open to the board president appointing, I think it would be appropriate to include that.
That should be included in, somewhere in here, as one,
One of the list of appointees.
as his appointee, right, and that, when we do when the committee assignments are done, that, because that's another board, maybe that's listed a little bit separate, but still under the same, grouping of the liaison assignments. As who's appointed to that board, because that, even though that's another board, that could change annually as well.
If the board's okay with it, I'll work with the clerk, sorry.
I'm not sure I get feedback on that one.
That would too, okay, I'm just gonna go without the microphone and use my big boy voice here. I'll work with the clerk and we'll submit it to legal counsel to make sure that we have it worded properly, and then we'll bring that
Yeah.
back to the board.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
We can get the
Yeah.
final version of this.
Yeah, that's a good point. We did talk about it, but we weren't sure if we were ready to put that,
Yeah.
include that yet.
But we're going to be voting members here, how soon?
All of the agencies, each of the oversight agencies has approved membership for us.
Right.
They're in the process of calculating the final cost and will invoice us. And once that's paid, and then we would the final vote would be December 4th is the next board meeting. Legal counsel for Confire is actually looking if a board member would be able to participate in that meeting, or if they have to wait until it's finalized. I believe that they could attend, at least to observe, if not as a voting member.
So we would need somebody as soon as December 4th. Okay.
That's correct.
Moving on.
Thanks, John.
Perfect turn.
Yes, page 27, no changes are suggested on 27 or 28. Or 29, some minor changes on 29. Any concerns or questions on 27, 28, or 29? No. And we move on to page 30. Doing some minor cleanup.
What brought about this travel agent, third-party companies?
My understanding is we had a situation where a board member used a travel agency and so there was an
To
expense.
cancel their reservation. Wasn't booked with it, but to cancel.
Okay.
So
So
they
we wanted
charged
to
us.
clarify that that's not something that the district is gonna accept the expense on.
Okay.
Page 31. Again, just bring some clarity to some things. 32,
I'm sorry, you're on 31?
yeah, 31.
I just wanna make sure, because there's a lot of scratch outs, that the middle red area is a coherent sentence. We don't have a time frame on the FEMA sponsored training.
No,
Do we wanna have, and it's not saying that it is also highly recommended. Do we wanna make that mandatory or not?
so we can discuss that.
Actually, this is something I brought forth years ago because I believe that a lot of our board members coming from the general public should have an understanding of the ICS system. And that's why it was brought forward, so, this was done quite a while ago, maybe just last time, I don't know, it all runs together after you get old. But I think it's very, very important training to, at least for those that weren't in the industry, to understand ICS, how it works, and it gives you a pretty good understanding of our organization on an incident.
Okay.
So I think it's a good thing.
No, I agree.
So do we want to change it from,
No, I just wanna make sure, I just wrote down on my notes here, wording and time. You know, I wanna make sure the wording was not a run-on sentence. And it might not be, I was reading it fast. And the time is, do we wanna put any time constriction on that? Cause right above it, we said,
yeah,
for new members, we want them to go through the SCLF stuff within 18 months.
certainly could.
Oh, I see what, yeah.
I mean, it's just a couple hours, right? Isn't it?
It's an online course,
It's
so
an
it's
online
about a
course,
2-hour. Unless you go really slow, it's 3 hours. So it's.
So do we
it's
want to add 18
straightforward.
months there too?
I think we
Be
should.
consistent?
I would actually suggest you put in a lesser time with that, because that's readily available, whereas DLF is not.
So what do we think?
My personal opinion, 3 months,
3 months.
Within their
'90 days.
Within
12 months. Just
within
leave it
12
18
months.
for consistency.
Or I'd say 18 for
18 for
consistency.
consistency.
No,
Yeah.
that's too generous, this is online, you can run it up right now.
I believe after you suggested that, I did it online.
It is, so you can only do it online.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 18 months, we okay with that? Understand.
No, I think it should be a lot less than 18 months.
Understand.
That's what you want, okay.
All right.
Okay, move on.
32, page 32.
32 addresses the safety issues for board members at an incident scene.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, this is what we were
I
talking
personally
about
don't feel
earlier.
any of us need to be there.
Right. Then this is a new section added regarding clothing use on page 33.
Yeah, and I have a comment on this
Okay.
section of all things. Disposable clothing. We get the board member clothing and it's got our name and a director on it and all those things. And I just think that somehow we should have a disposal policy on getting rid of that stuff. And I'll be the first to bring in a bag full of it.
Oh, I just cut out all my name
So,
on my old
I
clothing
think-
and my badge.
I think we should address that there's a proper disposal of that, because, and this goes back a long time ago. When I was taking the trash out, I was living in Redondo Beach, and a trash truck came by and he was wearing Redondo Beach firefighter shirt, the patches and everything, and somebody had thrown away in trash. And I just think it's, you know, and especially with this day and age of donating stuff to Goodwill and all these places, that we should just address that we wanna dispose of these things in a manner to where somebody can't use it and try to disguise themselves as a current board member of the district. I just think that a proper disposal, and it could be cut it up or whatever, but let's talk about how
Can
we
we
get
just,
rid of it.
can we just put on there that,
I'm not gonna burn 'em, but.
no, I mean, once a board member's no longer,
No,
active, that they may not wear any
well,
district.
if that's the case, do we want them to turn it in? If it's, and I'm concerned not with the logo on it, I mean, you know, everybody's got, I'm concerned with it having a name and a rank and those types of things. And,
Yeah, I mean, like-
and to be and to where it could be construed as an active member.
Right, you're worried about somebody,
Regardless of whether a former board member is wearing it or not, or somebody from the public finds it or gets it.
right, but you're worried about somebody wearing it,
Yes.
right? Okay. Cause like, you know, I know people cut stuff up to make shadow boxes, and, you know, somebody like my wife who makes the blankets, you know, will cut up a shirt and add that on to, you know, a big blanket that she makes.
Yeah, but
So,
if you're wearing a blanket in public, they're gonna know that that's a blanket, not a shirt.
well, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't wanna be so restrictive that we say that it has to be turned back in, when some of
I'm
us
not
might
saying
want
that,
it
I'm
for
saying,
another purpose.
I'm just saying, we want it disposed of,
Okay.
and it doesn't have to be a former, it could be a current member, you're getting rid of something.
Right.
Just, you destroy it.
So let's address dispose of. If our shirt is ruined or bad and we have no need for it, let's make a policy, we can't throw it out, that we must remove our name, it must be cut out, the shirt can be thrown away. But if you wanna keep those patches, keep them, if you don't, then bring them to district.
I think that would be my suggestion,
Okay,
but I just think we should have something in there, you
Okay.
just don't throw away
Yeah,
and go
no,
to
that's
Goodwill.
good point.
yeah.
Yeah, not,
been
certainly not
cutting-
turn into good ones.
No, I've been cutting mine.
Right.
Yeah, cause you're right, I had one of my fire district polo shirts that, I don't know, got stained or something, I just cut it up.
Yeah, cause that's what,
Okay, Sandra's got it.
okay.
Good, that's a good point, yep. We'll get that added. 34, 35, 36, 36, I'm just going through these, through 38, there's no changes on those. I don't know if anybody has any.
So can I back up just a tiny bit on this clothing?
Yep.
How are we gonna enforce that if they're not on the board anymore?
We just address active board members that when, and it should also be, I mean, if you know board policy, when you're gone, then you know instead of throwing out a shirt, you need to cut up. You need to cut that up.
Well, and if somebody's off the board and they're wearing them, in my mind, and Jeff, you can weigh on this, it might not be any different than somebody impersonating a firefighter. You know, I mean, once you're off the board, it's your own responsibility to not let people think that you're still currently on the board, you know, and that goes for anybody, I mean, that's.
Okay, just a question, I don't wanna dwell on it too much.
No, I don't either, but that's.
I just was wondering if you had anything in mind.
All right, anything on 34, 35, 36, 37, 38? Because we did not. And we didn't receive any. All right, then I'm on 39.
Well, I was gonna say something on this one.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I had something written down here too, go ahead.
So, a ceremonial swearing will take place at the next board meeting by a judge or clerk of the board. The official oath of office is done by the clerk at the earliest possible time, which normally is a Friday afternoon. But the ceremonial one is just ceremonial, it's done here in front of the public, you know, when we have our meeting. I'm just gonna make it about me here for a second, I made a request to have my wife swear me in, as has been done with the city of Chino Hills many times, or ask, Kurt Hagman, sworn in people, other stuff. And we got kinda hung up on this, and so I let it go at the time, and I said we'd discuss it again when we had a board policy workshop. So I'd like to bring that back, that it doesn't have to be a judge or clerk of the board. I think we're pigeonholing ourselves for a ceremonial versus a legal responsibility here. We're bringing a judge in to make it look official, but it's not.
In my opinion, is a ceremonial, and we do it as we go down as a group. I think, again, I'll go back to 200 years of tradition.
I didn't think you were that old.
Damn near, but I just like the way it's always been. I think that the judge coming in with the robe and you know, and they're not always available, but I think that the ceremonial, I think it's really a nice touch, and I just think it really is really nice to do it that way. And just because somebody else does something one way, doesn't mean that's the way we should do it. You know, we're our own entity, and we should do what we think projects who we are and what we are the best that we can. So I like it the way it is.
I like it. I feel that it's a very nice touch. In addition, I feel that we set the standards as board members, and we have frontline personnel who are sworn in, and I would not like if they came and asked us if their wife could swear them in. That would kind of create just I think just for consistency purposes, I'd like to see where a judge swears us in. We can have our family members stand up there by all means, that
As we
doesn't
do.
preclude from the participation, but that's my feedback. I want to keep it as such.
Yeah, I think, we've had this discussion before. I'm gonna lean the same way. I wanna be sensitive to what you're saying, Director Krieger, but I'm gonna support this too. I like having the judge and the clerk for some consistency. So I wanna support this as well.
Okay, move on.
And then I got one more question about this. A question was asked of me once, when we take our oath of office, do we sign anything that says we've taken the oath of office?
Yes.
So, when you administer the oath, it's official, when our clerk administers the oath, that's the non-ceremonial oath, we do sign a form saying that that's it. And with that being, so should that be in there, that we have a signed thing, or just because we do it, it's fine?
I actually received a copy of my signed document from the Register Recorder. They actually mailed me a copy of it.
Of the election results?
No,
Of
the
my
other
signed
signed,
document in a very nice
Oh.
way, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they like me
Okay.
better than you.
You know
I
what,
believe
it's
I
just
got that
I'm
as well.
teasing, John. I'm teasing.
Well, I was gonna say, I probably have them, but
Maybe it was there's the certification.
Yes, the
you get a certification.
Yes.
Yeah, I have that, I have
Yeah.
it framed,
Yeah.
but the oath of office is, we do sign. I thought, I wasn't 100% sure, I thought we did, and I didn't know if that should be included in there or not, but we'll go ahead and move on.
Okay, 40 and 41, we're talking about agenda. Trying to
Oh, I got several
add some
comments.
time here, primarily was the changes there.
Yeah. Specifically, what I have here is agenda comments must be on, when the board makes agenda comments, they must be on the agenda item. And, that's up to the board president to bring it back. We haven't always done that, but that's something.
We addressed that is addressed not here, but somewhere else in.
Well, it's in, if you look
It's
at Robert's
actually
Rules
addressed
of
in
Order.
here as well.
But,
Is it in here?
Yeah,
and then.
I read it.
Okay.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, we allow 5 minutes for board comments on an agenda item, and it's not to be split, and I read that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, does it say, it says the same thing on board comments, a board member gets 5 minutes?
Right, and the split is you can't split it. In other words, I'll give 3 of my minutes to Director Krieger.
Oh, that's what that
That's-
means,
That's
okay.
what we're talking about.
Okay.
Are you sure that's what that means?
Now, does that mean that, I can't split my time, I can't take 2 minutes and then come back later and take 2 more minutes?
No.
Is that splitting it as
Now
well?
No, I didn't,
it-
that
That's
was
the way I
the,
heard it.
It was
No.
my understanding that you could talk for 5 minutes, but then you have to give the time, or let somebody else speak, and then you could talk more. It's not a 5 minute and you're out deal, it's a 5 minutes and somebody else gets to comment, and then you can come back and talk more.
No, I read it as, where,
So-
what page are we on?
It's on page 50, and the language says, "Board members shall not be permitted to split their allotted speaking time." Generally, in parliamentary procedure, if we're talking about giving your time to somebody else, it's called yielding their time to somebody else. So this is just talking about splitting, so you
Okay.
can't take 3 minutes and then have a 2-minute rebuttal. If you want to have it be clear that you also cannot yield your time to other board members, you might wanna consider adding that.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that clear on that, so you would have a total of 5 minutes, and you get 5 minutes all in one shot.
And also that you cannot yield your time to others.
Okay, I'd just like to do a little more research on that, and find out for sure, because I was under the impression that it was 5, and then somebody else could talk, but then you could come back and talk more,
You know,
so,
I'm in favor of limiting it to 5 minutes period.
I thought that's how it was worded.
but we'll find out.
Well, that's what we're proposing, how to remain worded as well.
Right,
with
that's what I'm hearing.
clarification, so.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're back.
Now, on page 40, where it's talking about, items for the, agenda, do we have a form at this time?
No,
So we're gonna create a form?
right,
the board has to approve this
right,
language first, and then a form would be
right.
created if we
Now,
approve it.
can items be shot down? If one of the board members wants something added to the agenda, can it be, shot down, or is it,
Yeah, that's
It's
addressed,
gonna be on there.
that's addressed in this
who
section,
makes that decision?
it's addressed in
As
this
the board,
section.
It's addressed in here that it goes to the president and vice president, or president makes a decision. And then if there's conflict or an appeal process, or it's not exactly, I don't think how we word it, but then it would come to the full board for a determination. So if there was something submitted and it was denied, it could come back to the full board for.
So-
and that's on page 41.
Would be
in-
brought up to the board?
Yeah.
Would any item that is denied be brought up to the board then?
Yes.
Or would it be the person that was going to bring it up that has to bring it up
No.
again?
So if you look at B, the board president upon consultation with appropriate parties will determine whether the public request is or not a matter directly related to district business, and whether the matter warrants placement on a future agenda. Any request not approved by the president shall be reviewed by the board at a board meeting to determine if the item or items will be placed on future board agenda. That's where that's
clear.
addressed right there.
Okay, I would
That's on
like,
page 41 at the top.
I would
That's
just
also
like to
page
see a wording in there that if a person does not agree with that they can bring it up during their board comment time.
It's right there.
Well, yeah, it's automatic, it's gonna go.
It'll go
Is that in
to
there?
a future meeting, it will be agendized for a future meeting
Right.
to be
Okay.
discussed.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying? In other words, I may wanna bring something up and the president may not wanna bring it up, or,
The president
it's
doesn't have a
appropriate.
choice as far as if you bring something forward, they deny it, you feel it needs to be agendized and it goes before the board.
Right.
and then the board says, well, we don't wanna talk about that.
The board makes a
The
decision.
board will determine whether or not the matter is directly related to district business or not.
You know, and alternatively, we can put it on the agenda and the board can pull it and not discuss it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But then a person during board comment time can say something about it. correct?
As long as it's not,
Once it's pulled though, right?
Once it's pulled, it's done.
Yeah, but I'm saying though that if I have something that I'd like to bring up and it's not brought up on the agenda during the end of the meeting, toward the end of the meeting, if there's
yeah, but once,
board comment, I can say something about it.
as long as it doesn't have anything to do with closed session, that we shouldn't be
Oh,
discussing in public.
we're not going there, no, absolutely not. I mean, even if it's, no matter what, you can't bring it up in the, agenda if it's closed session. No, that's not a question.
So we're
Any
good
other
with 41?
questions on these changes?
I've got something, but it's not for the agenda, but we'll go through this, and I don't know where it will fit, but we'll go,
Okay.
if it doesn't fall into one of these future ones, I'll bring it up at the end.
Okay,
You have it documented somewhere?
Yeah, I got it written right here.
okay. All right, so 42, no changes. I'm on page 43 and 44, where we're talking about board conduct.
43 clearly states the amount of time, you have 5 minutes during
Yeah, this falls right.
agenda item, and then the board comment, you have 5 minutes. The board president can grant an extension at the president's sole discretion. And any extension then would have to be granted to everybody else.
Right. Exactly.
I like that.
In other words, if one gets it, they all get it. Is that correct?
That's what it
That's
says.
what it says.
And we want to add the yield time here as well. Yes.
Now, do they get it forever or just during that meeting?
Just a specific
Just at that
agenda
one
item.
time.
Well, it's a legitimate question. Hey, this guy got 10 minutes, I get 10 minutes from now on.
That's not the way it works.
Oh, well, it doesn't say that.
Yeah, I have something.
Okay, so added, can we add in to alleviate Director Williams' problem with this, that it's board meeting by board meeting?
For that meeting,
Well, it says-
For that meeting only?
Well, it says each specific agenda item.
Specifically for that agenda item, period.
It's the, I think it's,
We can clarify that.
we have
Thank
more
you.
clarity. All right.
well, that doesn't sound right, though. I mean, if I have something else that I'm talking about, I should be able to expand on it if that's the case.
John?
I have one here that I would like added into board meeting conduct.
Okay, what
And
page
that
are you on?
says- I don't know what page it would be
On
on,
the
this is on
top,
the
look at
agenda,
the
but I
top.
want conduct, this is board
Oh.
meeting conduct. It is on
Okay.
page
43
43.
of 44.
43.
Okay,
And what I would like added into the board policies is that board members may not leave their seat on a dais without permission of the president of the board or board chair. Any member wishing to leave his or her seat must ask for a short recess.
Does that mean that if I gotta go pee, I need to?
Ask for a short
Ask-
recess,
ask
that's
to
proper,
go
that's
pee?
proper
That's
board
absolutely
decorum.
correct.
That's very proper board decorum, is ask for a short recess. We don't get up and leave our seats and walk around, and that needs to be added into our board policies.
Cause, I've seen like, council meetings from LA City and stuff like that, and I've been to board meetings with the LA County Board of Supervisors, and they get up, they do whatever they need to do.
Well, that's their
and
meetings.
handle
That's
business.
them.
Yeah,
Most boards, it's very, very disrespectful to get up and leave your seat and walk around or do things. And most boards do not do that. I've seen the city of Chino Hills. I've seen a council member make a request for a short recess because he had to go to the bathroom. I've seen him actually do that a number of times. And I've seen that done in other areas, we need to take a short, we take a quick short recess. That's all you gotta say and it's done.
okay.
And what will be the consequences if that's not done properly? In other words, if a person does get up or
Then you'd be, I wanted the board policies, you'd be violating board policies.
might get censured again.
Right,
Shall we move on?
that's up to you.
Good with all that, Jeff? You got it? And Sandy? Okay. All right.
yeah, that's, I'm sure you've seen that other places, Jeff. That seems fine.
Okay, moving on to page 45 and 46. And here's where I think we get back to one of your concerns, Director DeMonico, on 2040.3, where
What page you on?
on page 46,
Okay.
where we're clarifying that the board has the opportunity to revoke certain privileges, and I think that was one of your
Okay,
concerns.
that was back in the other one, that was.
So if you're good with that language, or if you need, if you have any.
No, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
we were doing everything.
Is legal look to
Properly.
this, Jeff? Okay.
I just wanna avoid any conflicts we have within our own policies, that we pick them up and, you know, it's very easy to have a conflict in a document this large.
Yes,
We can avoid them, we avoid them.
I agree.
So, could I request a short recess?
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay,
Just
we got a
quick
short
5
recess,
minutes,
we'll
I
take
need-
5.
Yes.
Take 5, we'll resume in 5 minutes, whatever time it is now.
5:35, so at 5:20.
And I believe you were on page 46.
Right.
And we're now moving to 47.
Yes.
So 48 and 49,
47.
just again some clarification kind of things, and now that we're video recording. So nothing there, I'm on page 50
Yeah.
and 51.
Yeah, 50, I pulled 50, but it says exactly what I like here about the 5 minutes to speak on each agenda item, and it just clarifies that.
Okay.
All right. And 51. Any questions? Comments?
Yep, that's pretty much all Robert's.
Yeah. And 52. No
53.
changes, right?
Nope.
53. No changes. 54, no changes. Real quick, so yes, on 55, no changes. 56, no changes. 57, nothing. 58. 59, 60, 61, and that's it.
So we've gone through here and given our input, and it'll go back for, I guess, a final draft. Is that what we do now? It goes back for a final draft, a legal review, and we'll get it back.
Can I ask a question? I missed this when you guys were talking, and, you guys kinda talked about it. And,
What page are you
it's
referring
on
to,
page
please?
24.
24. Okay.
And it's down here at the bottom of the red where it says attendance shall, when available, include any webinar or video webcasting of any of the meetings, activity, or events as outlined in this policy. What is webinar? I know what video is, but what is webcasting and webinar and?
It's online education.
Yeah, it'd be online video of the event.
So, for example, John mentioned the
ICS.
the ICS incident command thing. That is a webinar online training, so that's considered a webinar.
As
Okay.
well as ethics training and sexual harassment
Ethics training,
training.
sexual harassment training is all done via the web.
Your webinars.
Well, now it says meetings, activities, and events. Now, does that mean like, if a person has liaison to the, school board, they can watch it on TV and get credit for it, get $150 for it? Is that correct?
That's what it says.
So they just have to put down, I
Well,
watched it on
that'll
TV
go back
and-
to what I said about
We
what
also
constitutes
listed-
attendance in a meeting.
Yeah,
Correct like that.
And we also listed,
Right.
1080.1, The role of a liaison is to attend meetings and represent the board, gather information and concerns, develop contacts and relationships with local agencies within the fire district, and report back to the board in an effort to best serve the community.
And there's one other thing that happens too, is there are meetings that are conducted both over the internet and and telephone, or just telephone meetings, where you're not attending it physically in person, but you're attending the meeting at the time of the meeting, and you're conferencing.
And those I understand, those I can agree with, but, I'm just, kinda talking about like the, meeting for the school board and the, city council meetings where they're on TV and stuff, there's no interaction there. And, I don't feel that that's correct. I feel that what you're saying on the first part is absolutely correct. That's the reason that they have the liaisons, is to interact and talk to the council or the school board or whoever.
Yes.
Even if you're just there to say, well, I'm here, I'm representing the fire district and I really have nothing to report, but if anything comes up, I'm here to answer any questions, but.
And it goes further than that. Is it 30 minutes, or is it more? Is it the entire meeting? So that's why I suggested to identify what
John,
constitutes.
would you sit up?
So we're still working on this part, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right, John was.
And if you have any
John, would you
suggestions or
sit up?
comments, please forward those.
okay.
John, talking you.
If you have any comments or suggestions, please forward those comments or suggestions and your thoughts on that, so.
Okay, great.
Please do them ASAP, you guys, sorry, I had mine closed. ASAP, because, I actually would like to give a time frame on that, because Harvey and I wanna meet again to incorporate the information that was provided. That takes time, we schedule together, we sit down with Sandra, it's a pretty long process. We go over everything that was brought forward today, and if there's additional information, and just, so I asked, can we give a time frame by maybe the end of,
The week?
by tomorrow, no teasing, by the end of the week? Is that something that you guys can please?
Yep.
Okay, thank you,
I've got mine typed, I'll give it to you tonight.
okay, thank you,
All right, good.
okay,
So about October 25th.
yes, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. If there's no more input on the, verbal input on the board policy tonight, then we've given direction. So at this time, we'll go to board comments. Mr. Williams.
Gonna have me go first, huh? Okay, couple of things, about, Mr. Goldman's comments. I don't quite understand what his concern is. I still own the house, I still live in my house. I take care of the yard at my house, I pay for the utilities at my house. And, his comment about me not living there is not correct. I guess what I wanna see is, a statement that says how many days a year or how much time I have to spend at the house. I do stay there. And, so I just wanna see what Mr. Goldman could come up with, or anybody, or the DA or somebody that says, well, you've gotta be there this many days, or this number of nights, or something like that. But be assured that that is my residence, that's where my mail goes to, all my bills go to, and that is a fact. And there's another thing that needs to be brought up is, because of misinformation a couple of meetings ago, when I asked if I could comment when Mr. Goldman spoke, and I was told no, but the truth of the matter is I could make a comment when I got up from the dais and went over and spoke with Mr. Goldman, and I said that I'd be glad to speak with him after the meeting if he'd like to talk. He went and filed a restraining order on me. Now, the judge was intelligent enough to not grant it, but tomorrow there's gonna be a hearing on it. And, so I'll be there and make comments and so on, but, so it was a result of misinformation that caused me to go down and speak with Mr. Goldman and gave him an opportunity to file a restraining order against me, because he's claiming that he was like attacked or something by me because I went and told him that I'd be glad to talk with him. So I just thought I'd let you guys know about that. So, in regards to these events going on and trying to get me kicked off the board and everything, if you guys do come up with a statement on how many nights or how often I have to stay at my house, I would appreciate it, because I don't know. Is there something out there that says, okay, you gotta be there this many days a year or whatever? Because quite frankly, it's bogus. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Ricker.
I just want to thank the district for the wonderful open house festivities. It was a good day. And thank you to the committee and Sandra for working so hard on all this. I appreciate, I'm sorry, and Jeff. I appreciate everybody working hard on this. Thank you.
Kirk Revenger.
So, thank you everybody for their input today, and I want to thank our speaker today. Thank you for the information. I'm gonna leave it up to the DA to come back with a decision before I decide to, make any recommendations or such. I just feel personally that I need to, now that it's been brought to the DA, I don't wanna ignore that information was brought forward to us, but I wanna say that once it's brought to the DA, at that time I need to wait for the investigation to be conducted. And that's all. Thank you. Have a safe and happy Halloween.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the confidence the board had in letting us be on that committee. It was interesting. I can't tell you how many times I've read this thing, and yet when you raise questions, I'm trying to remember where did I read that at, but I enjoyed the process and appreciate everyone's comments tonight. I noticed earlier I noticed that we've got a few new people, Natalie and Adam, so congratulations to those hires. That's I'm sure Chris is looking forward to the help, and it's good to have Adam.
Be legitimate.
Yeah, he's now employed by us after working for us for some time already. So anyway, with that, that would end my comments.
Okay, before I make my comments, fire chief comments. I don't have it on here.
No comments tonight, but
That's kind of what I figured, but thank you. Every year we go through this process, and it's amazing how involved it is every year. And the changes we make every year. And we'll probably do that for years to come. But I want to thank everybody for their input, their hard work on this. It's not easy. I've been part of the ad hoc before. I've been through this, and it's time consuming. It's not easy reading. Because it's not exciting. It's not like reading a book or going to the movies. But thank you all for your hard work, because there's a lot involved in there. And then when you're done with it, we get to rip it apart. So,
Okay.
but with that being said, I just want to thank everybody for their hard work and the input that's gone into this. And we'll resolve this year and do it again next year. So thank you again. And with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 5:54. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.